Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Literary Hour. I'm your co-host Jackie Sai. Prof is not with us today. He might join later. If not, we'll carry on. We're going to discuss Strangers in a Strange Land, and that's a question. And then it's about voyages to Liberia. So Prof and I decided that we're going to again start exploring the makeup of our country, the indigenous, the formerly enslaved people, the people who came from the West Indies, and then the recaptured Africans. So today we're going to talk about the group that made the voyage from the West Indies. And it's a very interesting. We always talk about them settling in Liberia. We talk about the ports and we talk about the Peabodys and things like that. But we've never really explored how it came to be that they came to Liberia. So today we want to talk about that. We want to discuss it. How is it that people from Barbados, from St. Thomas, and the other islands made their way to Liberia? It's a very fascinating topic, and we've been doing a lot of research. There's a book, More Auspicious Shores. I'm sure most of you have read it. It's a very interesting book about this migration, and there are other articles that we've read about it. So today I'll be doing a lot of reading of quotes and speeches to follow along. So when we're talking about people coming to Liberia from the West Indies, we want to talk a little bit about how is it that they saw Liberia? How is it that they even decided to come to Liberia? So we will start first with 1841. You know, it was in the 1860s when the ship the Cora came to Liberia, bringing the people from the West Indies. But before then, in 1841, in the West Indies, there was an anonymous person who wrote a letter, right? And he called himself, or the pen name was Africanus. So Africanus wrote, and he said, and I quote, "If political equality is denied to us in that land which gave us birth, by those in whom rests the power to bestow it, how are we to obtain it?" So what was happening? Britain had given independence. Let me just put it that way: independence, right, to people in the West Indies. But the independence did not come. Yes, my professor is here. But hi, Prof. You're driving?
I'm at a stopping place. I've been
Okay.
having a difficult time. I'm sorry for that.
That's okay, Prof. We're glad that you're able to join us. We're just talking a little bit about how it came to be that oh, so why did you stop?
Forget about it. Uh, uh, Richard Pryor once said, "Some kind of hero in some kind of mess." I'm some kind of hero in some kind of mess. But anyway, let's see 1 or 2 minutes I can put in here. How? Yes.
Okay, Prof. So we were talking about the fact that we want to focus on the beginnings, and then of course when you join us next week, we're going to talk about the landing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now we're talking about the beginnings, and I was setting the stage to say that when slavery ended in 1834 in the West Indies, right? The slaves became apprentices. They were not emancipated per se, so they became apprentices to the British people, I guess, to the British population. So when they were giving when they became apprentices, right, it was not till years later before they became emancipated and free. But one of the things that was interesting, and I think we've discussed this on the show, is that when the slave owners, when they freed the slaves, right, in the West Indies, when they gave these people freedom per se, Britain promised to give each person, each slave master, 20,000 pounds for, for freeing their slaves. And we discussed this before, that this 20,000 pounds that was promised by England, this payment continued till the 1980s. It was not till 2015 that this payment ended. 2015. So just imagine that. It was 2015 that Britain stopped paying the slave owners for freeing their slaves. But anyway, like Prof was saying, these people in the West Indies were apprentices, right? They were not wholly free at the time, and that did not sit well with them. Prof, you want to add anything about the post emancipation?
Yeah, but they, you see, the post-emancipation, what came into the picture was this whole tension of grappling with what to do with that will now emancipate. Every time I think about the post-emancipation thing, I think about what just happened in Afghanistan. You know, people wanted this whole thing about war to stop, but then the whole idea was what happens after the war. In the case of emancipation, people were kind of rooting for emancipation, at least those who were either tired of seeing blacks being a kind of brutalized and kind of placed in a suffering condition. The idea was, what will happen to this huge number of people who have been emancipated? To add insult to injury, a lot of people did not have marketable skills. They did not have marketable skills. And since they didn't have marketable skills, the big question was always, what are we going to do with them? So those that you were talking about, some of them, it was not all of them that got into this plan of what you call apprenticeship. It was a select group, and it was more by choice from the slave masters than any other thing. So it became a difficult thing for the blacks. And while some of the slave masters were doing their best, call it their best, as if it was a good thing to even.
Okay, as Prof was saying, these the people from the West Indies, when they were freed and they became apprenticed to the white slave owners, they were not wholly free at the time, right? It was only in 1840. So 1834 they became free, but they were apprenticed, and then in 1840 they became wholly free. But although they were wholly freed, they still did not have the equality that was supposed to be given to somebody who was free, right? So and so they were looking for a place, according to Africanos, where their color would cease to be a disadvantage, right? So in 1840 now, the people, they are free. In 1841, Africanos write this letter, and he said, political equality is denied to us in that land which gave us birth. How are we to obtain it? So in the letter, he's saying the first one is to fight for it. So we can fight for our independence, to become free in the sense that freedom means. But the second way that we can get this position as men was what? To seek it, and I'm quoting, to seek it on other more auspicious shores, leaving behind the land of our birth, the land which is dear to our hearts. And we will leave this land to be tilled by the tyrants who claim it as their own, right? So Africanus is saying, look, if we cannot fight, we need to find somewhere where we can go and become men and be men, the men that we were meant to be, right? So around that same time in later in 1851, right? Le Baltimore Sun, this is in the United States now, in Massachusetts, right? They carry a question, and they say, can we not endorse the words of the British Review and say that the Americas are successfully planting free Negroes on the coast of Africa. West Indians will emigrate to Liberia. They will crowd our steamers. They will take with them intelligence, wealth, and a perfect knowledge of agriculture of our country. Right? So they're saying that look, there's a land, there's a place that we can go that's already there. So if we are not going to fight, we should go to this land that is set aside for free blacks. Yeah, Props, you want to say anything?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they with my own things are this infatuating. What I really want to add to our discussion is that the whole thing they call freedom was not free.
No, we know. Yeah, it was apprenticeship.
Yeah, I'm talking about because post emancipation, you know, they kept talking about all free and all that, and then even the very apprenticeship was not a well laid out plan. So the free blacks had to really exert themselves. The free blacks had to exert themselves. So while you were talking about apprenticeship, which at some point some of the past slave masters were able to support, it had to come from the blacks themselves. You see, it had to come from it had to come from the blacks themselves. It's like, if somebody would say, I gave you, I cannot give you a table and then find food for you and find plate for you and find food for you. You have to go out there. That is the dilemma that they found themselves in, the blacks found themselves in. And therefore, anywhere that promised some kind of benefits for them, they had to go there.
Yes.
So
Okay.
in that sense, then we must give these guys the respect of how they were able to get out there and fight for themselves.
Yeah, but Prof, what we're doing now, we're just setting the stage. We're saying that when the first Britain gave them apprenticeship, they were no longer slaves, but they were apprentices.
Mm-hmm.
Being apprentices were almost tantamount to slavery.
Yes.
So in 1840, Britain gave them freedom. They emancipated them, but they emancipated them and still they were not wholly free. So they decided, so when this guy wrote, he said, look, we can fight, but we're not going to win. So we need to find a place, because at the same time, they have been hearing that on other islands, other free blacks have been moving, going to other colonies. So they decided, the people in Barbados or in the West Indies decided that, look, let's look for a place. And they have been hearing about Liberia.
Yes.
So when J.J. Roberts was on his way to the United States, he stopped in Barbados. He stopped in Barbados in 1847. Mind you, that was like 7 years now after emancipation. But before he came, in 1846, these people got together and formed the Barbados Colonization Society. And that purpose was to find a place to go, to move from the West Indies, where they felt that they were disadvantaged, right? So it says the news of a Black Republic had preceded them. So there was a Barbados Colonization Society which had been formed, right? So their first idea was for a colony to be established with the aid and under the authority of Britain, right? Philanthropic objects, which according to the letter they wrote, they said, philanthropic objects which Her Majesty government have in view, Her Majesty loyal subject in the island of Barbados. So they still consider themselves part of England, but they felt that they were not treated fairly. Yeah. So what happened was that they decided that when J.J. Roberts came to Barbados, they were going to talk to him and see what he could offer them by way of going to Liberia, right? First, They proposed to continue to be British subjects and plant a British colony where they would rule. And then they said, and I quote, the lot that Providence had assigned them among white men was not permanent, and they aspired to be more than passive. So they said, look, we're tired with this thing that people say, oh, God says that you should be lesser. We want to be equal. We know that we can be equal, so we need to find a place. So I have notes, and so I will be and as I said, Africanus had already said that. Can we not find a place that we can go and be men, right? Okay, so in 1851 now, in the Baltimore Sun, they are asking now, can we not send these people to the same place that free Negroes are going? Why can't they go to Liberia, right? He says West Indian will emigrate to Liberia. They will bring intelligence. They will bring knowledge. They will bring agriculture. So when they wrote to J.J. Roberts, they said to him, and I quote, "We're going. We want to go, but," and I quote, "ours is a difficult case. We have not, like other people, the whole world before us." So they talk about Australia. They say, there are some other people who were enslaved, like some whites. They could go anywhere in the world, but we cannot, right? We cannot. There's only one place for us, Africa. So driven, and I quote again, driven by stern necessity to carry our genius and acquirement elsewhere, we have elected, we say, to proceed to Liberia if possible. So they decided that they wanted to go to Liberia. And this is the letter they wrote J.J. Roberts. And they continue in this letter. They said, but here a great difficulty presents itself. That difficulty is the means of transport. So they are asking J.J. Roberts now, if by using your great influence with the colonization society of America, you can induce them to embrace this island or the entire West Indies, you will be increasing the population and importing to its territory efficient agents in advancing its best interest. So they are saying to J.J. Roberts, we're going, we want to go, but we don't have the means to get where we are going. And we are asking you that while you're on your way going to America to meet the American Colonization Society, could you please ask them to help us, to help transport us in going to Liberia, right? And the people who signed this letter, among them was Mr. Barrow, who was a schoolmaster, Mr. Yearling, who was a schoolmaster, and Joshua Grimes, who was a clerk. So they had written to J.J. Roberts to say, please, we want to go. It's not that we don't want to go. We just don't have any money. So please to pay for our transport, right? So now, here's the interesting thing. And in the American colonization book, right, in the report, they're listing all these things that they've done in this year. And then there's one point where somebody writes that, we have to explain about the people from Barbados. And then they have this whole story about the people from Barbados that we go into, right? So in 1865, they had written to, it was the report of the American Colonization Society. But when they met J.J. Roberts and they spoke to J.J. Roberts and they talked to him, right? He said, okay, you know what? When I'm coming next time, I'm going to, if I don't come, I'm going to send somebody. So who did he send? He sent Blyden. Now, don't forget, Blyden was also from the Caribbean, right? So Blyden in 1862, he was from St. Thomas, right? He had emigrated. So he went to Barbados to talk to them, to encourage them to come to Liberia. So he says, and I quote, Liberia believes that the time has arrived to make a direct appeal to colored men in the Western Hemisphere for their sympathy and cooperation in this glorious enterprise. We believe that no other country presents to color man advantages equal to those held out by Liberia. So he's encouraging them now to go to Liberia. He says, look, there's nowhere else. There's nowhere else you can find that will give you the advantage that Liberia, or the advantages that Liberia would give you, right? So he says, we have ample territory. So don't forget, the British people had owned the West Indies. So even though there were free blacks, they had no land. They had no land, right? So he says, we have ample territory, right? He says, in addition, right, to you going, the government will give each settler 10 acres of land. So you're going to get 10 acres of land if you decide to emigrate to Liberia. And not only that, if you feel that the 10 acres of land is not enough, you can buy land at 50 cents an acre, right? So you get your 10 acres. You know, the land that is denied you in the West Indies, the land that the British they have, you can come to Liberia and you will get your 10 acres. And with this 10 acres, if you find that it's not enough, you can buy land at 50 cents an acre. So that was the incentive, right? And then the second incentive, again, they come to this thing that we always talk about, the Christianizing, civilizing mission that people seem to think they were going to Liberia. And Blyden says to them, we have 1 million of our brethren in that country who are in heathen darkness, right? So when you're coming, you're going to be able to what? Christianize them and civilize them, according to him. So you're not only coming for land. And then he says, oh, and we also have political rights. He says our political rights is Republican model after the United States of America, right? And there's no slavery in our country, right? Slavery is not allowed, according to his words. We have religious freedom. So these are all of the things that Blyden was encouraging the people from Barbados or from the West Indies to say, come, you know, no other country can give you what we can give you, you know, and upon that, we're going to give you land. So he says, so this is what he says. So that then at the same time, there's a guy named Harry Hooker. So Harry Hooker had gone to the West Indies, and Harry Hooker is also coming to talk to the American Colonization Society. So he's talking to one of the reverend to say, look, you have to help these people who are from the West Indies who want to go to Liberia. So he's setting the stage. And in his letter, he's saying to the pastor, he says, every acre of land in the West Indies is in the hands of white men who live in England, right? So that's his first thing. They live in England. So he says the colored race cannot reach the same social position with the wealthy and educated whites. And the colored race cannot merge themselves again in the mass of the ignorant and degraded from which they have arisen. So now he's saying, look, the blacks, they have to go. Because first, the whites own the land. And even though the whites live in England, some of them, they still own this land. So every acre of land in the West Indies is owned by whites. But the second thing he says is that the colored race cannot reach the same social position as the whites, even though they're free, right? Don't forget, 1840, they had made them free. But even though they were free, they could not reach the same position. But then he says something very interesting. Not only can these free people not reach the same position as the white men, he says, and they can't go down to the degraded masses from whence they came. So now these blacks are educated, right? They can't go down to the uneducated blacks because they have arisen from that. And they can't go to the whites because they cannot reach that social position. Now, he says, and this is his letter I'm reading again, I quote, now these intelligent colored people turned their eyes towards some other land, and they ask of me the question, right? So these people are asking of him, could they not find a home in Africa, their fatherland? Right? So he's saying to them, look, our colonization ships, right? He said, our colonization vessels on their way to Liberia pass at no great distance from Barbados and could easily touch there and take passengers. So he says, look, it's not even difficult, right? It's not difficult because what you're saying is that, oh, when a ship is going to Liberia, all they have to do is pass to Barbados. Those people don't even have to come to the United States, although some of them did come. They don't have to come. All they have to do is to for the ship to pass, right? Okay. So then, while we're doing research, we go to the American Colonization Society, and I'm doing this. I'm reading a book about for my class. So actually, I'm really interested in this history. So in the American colonization report, right, everything comes together. If you remember, and I will try to draw on before we continue, I will try to draw on the fact that we say that when you're doing history, when you're trying to piece together a picture, Prof and I, we said there must be an accurate representation or close, right? So we say that, look, if you're doing research and you say, oh, this person murdered this person in 1802, and then you write there were 10 people there, and somebody said no, there were 50 people there, there's a discrepancy. If you say 10 and somebody says 15, that's fine. Close representation. But if you diverge so widely, there's a problem, right? But as you can see with this, the letters, the reports, the speeches all come together to tell you this story. The advertisement in the Boston Review, the letter that Africanos wrote in the journal, all of these things, they are painting a picture that is accurate. That one, we know that the West Indies blacks were a little better educated. The British educated them, right? As opposed to some of the free slaves from the United States who came from slavery on the slave plantation straight to Liberia, right? Not that they were not educated. Of course, there were a lot of educated African Americans who went, or enslaved people who went. But we're saying that on the whole, right? On the whole, we're seeing a lot of, well, not a lot, but more educated people from the British side, right? And these people were not satisfied with their position as being apprentices. I don't care what you call it, they still felt that they were slaves. And I don't care how you call it, even in 1840, when you said they were freed, these people are now educated, some of them, and they're seeing that post-emancipation, they're not free. So now they're saying, okay, you know what? Maybe we could leave and go to a British colony and plant our flag under the auspices of Britain, right? But while they're thinking that maybe we can go to Africa, find a place and plant our flag, you know, then they realize that, but there's a free place. Liberia is already free, right? So then they did the Barbados Colonization Society. And now you may ask, before we continue, why couldn't they go to Sierra Leone? And you will see in some of the letters, they argued. And some said, no, Sierra Leone is still a British colony. We don't want to go there. We want to be completely free. And from what we've heard, Liberia is completely free. And not only that, now we have Joseph Jenkins Roberts sending one of our own, Blyden, who's telling us, one, you're coming also to Christianize and civilize the heathens, and then you're getting 10 acres of land. And the 10 acres of land that you're getting, you can buy more. You can buy at 50 cents an acre, you can buy more land, you know? So of course, yes, my father is Arab. I'm looking at some of the comments, and I think his question is my father Arab? Yes, my father is Arab. He's from Syria, And my mother is Grable from Rocktown and Plebo. So thank you, Sister Collins. Yes. Okay. So what happened now is that um the people is a perfect fermenting coming on, right? The perfect fermenting is that now they're poised, they're ready to go, right? But then they say, oh, but we don't have money, right? We don't have money. How are we going to get from where we are there? So then, of course, Mr. Hooker writes to Reverend Tracy and says, look, these people need to go, right? They can't go back to where they were because they are educated now, and they can't be equal to the whites. So your ship, when it's going to Liberia, it passes by Barbados. It's very easy for you to pick them up, right? So then we come now to the ACS report. So we know now, but we know now that they have been asking the American Colonization Society, please help us to get there, right? So in a report, um, it's mentioned that there were 353 immigrants who had emigrated to Liberia, right? That in 1865. So then the report says one of them was Professor Freeman, right? You said Professor Freeman had a family of 5. Okay, so that's 6 together with him. That's 6. Okay. The other one was Nicholas Augustine, so from New York. Okay, so that's 7. Then there was John Joseph Blyden from Boston. Okay, 8, right? But then he says, but we made special note to explain that Joseph J.J. Blyden was from the Danish island of St. Thomas, and a brother of who? Reverend Professor Blyden of Liberia College, right? Now, this guy was a blacksmith and a boiler, right? The remaining 346 sailed from Bridgeton, Barbados. Huh? So everything has come together now. So we know now from this report that what happened, that the American Colonization Society agreed. So when they were on their way, the Cora was on their way, the ship Cora was on his way to Liberia. It stopped in Bridgeton, Barbados, and picked up 353 West Indians to go to Liberia, right? He says, as this is a departure. Now the guy is saying, the reason why I put it in my report is that it is a departure from the usual policy of the society. It seems proper to give historically the reason what led to it and justify it. So he's saying that, okay, let me tell you that the reason why I put it in the report is because it was so different from what we normally do. Normally we go from from the United States straight. But I'm saying now that no, this one we had to stop. And the reason we had to stop was because of this, because we had these people. So we know that they agree, right? So let's look before we continue, let's look at some comments, and then we can go from there. So and please feel free to ask questions if you want. James said this is good for all Africa and all people of liberty and American. Elizabeth said, hi, I'm watching now. Amen. Thanks, Elizabeth. Cincy Kawa, welcome. Okay. And this is Vamendi. Okay, yeah, Vamendi, we already explained that. And Madie said, African American ex-slaves were not highly educated when they came to Liberia. In those days, their masters did not allow them to read and write except in secret. And we already said that. We said that as opposed to the British former slaves who were educated, some were schoolmasters. It is true, but you must also understand, Ms. Gia, that there were a mixture of people who came to Liberia, right? There were people who were also educated. Joseph Jenkins Roberts was educated. A lot of them were educated. What happened was that they said that those who were not freed were given their freedom on the condition that they immigrate to Liberia. So you had slaves getting on the ships and coming directly. Those were not literate, right? Because of course, like you said, they were not allowed to read and write, to learn to read or to write. So you had those. That's why they had a hierarchy in Liberia. Then you had others who had been free, and decided that they wanted to go to Liberia. So those also, they're in the mix. So I agree with you. By Mendy say, okay, great. I'm British Vi and Mendy. Oh, but let me continue to listen. Okay. Nupo Sumo say, whoa, okay, yeah. So we always talk about, oh, they came from Barbados, but the history has been hidden from us, right? So the ship now passed, and the ship went and picked them up, and sorry, my leg, and the guys are explaining that, oof, that's what happened. Yeah. So, oh, I'm sorry, my leg hurts. Okay, so now let's look at the people who came on the ship. We have the list here. Oof. And maybe so on April 6, 1965, yeah, the immigrants from Barbados, and I'm not going to call all of them. Of course, there are over 300, but I'll call some of them who maybe you'll know. Um, not you'll know, but you'll know the family. So we have uh, uh, James William Austin, who was a planter. Francis Maria Austin. So that's the Austin family. Then we have Mary E. Wiles and James Thomas Wiles, right? And then we have William Stanley Wiles, Richard Jones Wiles, Ellen Alberto. Okay, so the Wiles family, the Austin family, the Skeet, Samuel Primus Skeet and his family, the Sarah Christian Cadogan family. There were a lot of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were 6 of them. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 6. We have 9. We have 16 Padmores. Le Padmores. We have John Weeks Padmore, Elizabeth Francis Padmore, Jacob Padmore, Lucretia Padmore, Carolyn Padmore, and these were pastry makers. They were bakers. John Weeks Padmore was a mason. Mrs. Edward Nelson was a pastry maker. John Francis Marshall was a baker. And then we have uh, Joseph Thomas Gibson, who was a cooper. I don't know what a cooper means. We have the Douglas family. We have the King family, Francis Rebecca King. We had the Thorpe, John Isaac Thorpe. We have the Dayrell, Dayrell. We had the Eastman, Thomas Henry Eastman, Rebecca Ann Eastman. We had the Holders, Ellen Holder, Samuel Holder, James Daniel Holder, and Thomas Holder. We had the Jackman, Margaret Jane Jackman, Eleanor Jackman, and Joseph Nathaniel Jackman. Joseph Nathaniel Jackman. Samuel Jackman was 18 months old, so that was a baby. Mary Elizabeth Jackman was 14. Okay, so then we had the Cox, right? So for the Cox, we have John Abraham Cox was 23 years old. Mary Ann Cox was 23. I guess this is the child. Josiah Cox was 15 months. And Guy Brown was, Mary Ann Cox was 23. John Abraham Cox was 23. And then Josiah Cox was 15 months. We have the Brown family. Frederick Augustus Brown was 2. But Guy Brown was 40 years old. Elijah Brown was 38. So I think it's the family. And then we have Cadell, we have King, we have Bourne, Broom, Enos, we have Enos, Hunter, Clark, we have Blackett, Weeks. Okay, so those of you, okay, John Braith Weeks was a planter. We have Adamson, Goodrich, Cornelia Amelia Goodrich. And then we have James Edward Francis, Nancy Ann Jones, Henry King Taylor. We have Abraham Clark. We have the Barclays. There were a lot of Barclays. We have Dowdron Collier, Enos. We have Enos, Graves, Whartons. We have the Moores, the Briggs. Yes, we know a lot of Briggs who are from there. We have the Collier, we have the Gittins, the Worrells, the Armstrong, and the Braithwaite. So we have families going to we have families going to Liberia. Families who the boat passed and they picked them up and went to Liberia, right? So I would say that then what happened was that Daniel Bashir Warner, who was president at the time, right? He wrote that in 1864, he said, whereas by an act of the legislature, this was only 1 year before they got there, right? He said, whereas an act authorizing the president to adopt measures to encourage immigration to Liberia, right? So he wants, and this is what he wants, this is who he wants. He wants, he's inviting mechanics and merchants, school teachers, physicians, ministers, farmers, laborers, right? The demand in this new and growing country for persons skilled in all the profession and in every branch of industry is unlimited. And then he says, we are one in origin and destiny. We have history, the same history of centuries of suffering, of tribulation and war. The time seems to have come in the providence of God when this oppressed people, wherever they may be found in the exile, should see together and cooperate for the establishment in the land of their fathers a home and a nationality. The Republic of Liberia, whose independence is acknowledged by all the leading nations in the world, seems to be the most suitable starting point from which the returning exiles may begin to take of possession of and civilize this long neglected land, and thus aid in restoring to this ancient civilization her pristine glory. I like that. So when we always say that Liberia has an enviable position. It seems as if this piece of land is the home for blacks everywhere on earth, oppressed, like Daniel Warner said, oppressed, exiled. There is a home for you. So Warner is saying to them, come and let's build this cradle of civilization. This is our home. So he's appealing to them, and you can see it in his words that he's asking, we just don't want you just come. This is a growing country, so we want people who have skills to come. I think it's very very it's very touching. So when Warner writes this letter, right, he gets one in return, from somebody from somebody in Trinidad, and the person say, I am requested by some of my countrymen here, sons of Africa. So they've already considered themselves sons of Africa, who are suffering under the yoke and oppression of colonial prejudice, to address your excellency, right? And he says that I will feel grateful to your excellency for any information. I am happy to say that I can number 50 young men of intelligence whose profession are as follows: teachers, masons, tailors, goldsmiths, journers, who are willing and ready to emigrate as soon as satisfactory information shall have been received by me. Right? You see, as one of Africa's son, I am so much interested in the welfare of my race, and that as soon as I have the pleasure of perusing your excellency proclamation, I will cause the same to be made public. So he said he's going to publish the letters all over Trinidad so people can know. And he ends by saying, long live Liberia, your humble servant, C.T. Fortune. Yeah. So people have already, so it was like Liberia fever was gripping the West Indies, right? And they were ready to go. Yeah. So and he says, I have also had several interviews with Mr. Anthony Barclay, who is also preparing with a party to emigrate to Liberia. The secretary of the Liberia Barbados Company have filled up the list sent to you. So they already they already have the list. He said, but these people who are so well to do as to be able to pay their own passage are not likely to leave their property, their homes, and their land to immigrate to Liberia, right? But those who have taken up this matter in right good earnest are driven to seek another country on account. But why they are offered homes and opportunities befitting themselves, right? And offer advantages, they will be among their own people. So he's saying, so what do you have for us if we come, right? Besides being free, but there's the land. There's 10 acres of land, and you're gonna buy 1 acre at 50 cents. So there's land, right? So so the government is saying, so they're saying that with all of this, right? Britain now say, oh, there's problem here. Because what's going to happen is that we're going to lose our workers. If everybody's going to Liberia, who's going to stay and do our work? So they started to offer inducement to the West Indians, right? Oh, you can stay, we can offer you a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. But, and I quote, the most intelligent of them felt a want which could not be satisfied without a nationality of their own. Right? So the people were saying, no, I don't care what you give us. We want a place and a nationality of our own. Right? So yes, Dwight, there's the ports. I think I call it ports. You came late, Dwight. Your descendants are there. I'm going to call their names again. Let's find the ports, and we'll call them. So let's see if they're on this ship. The Padmores, the Douglas, we went through that. The Thorpes, the Holders, the Jackmans, the Caldwell. Maybe I'm going too fast. Here it is, Dwight. It's John Prince Port, who was 50 years old. He was a farmer. And then Ellen Ann Port, who was 50 years. And religion, Protestant. John Edward Port, I assume it was their son. He was 15. Joseph Port, 13. Samuel Thomas Port, 12 years. And Nathaniel Port, 4. So they were there, Dwight. they were there. They were there. Yeah. So now you have them. They're there. And what's happening? They have he's publishing everywhere. He's publishing what's happening, and Britain is saying, oh, no, we're going to give you something. And they said, nope, we want to go. Right? Okay. So then the people are kind of like, so what are we going to do? Because according to them, like they said, there are several hundreds who have already gone to other colonies, So what's happening now, right? So the people were ready, right? So the ACS, after been talking about it, they said, and it says, resolved that the sum of $10,000 be appropriated by this society to be expended as the executive committee shall direct for the purpose of aiding emigration from Barbados to Liberia. And listen to the second part. Resolved that this society, that's the ACS, does not pledge itself by this appropriation to aid any future immigrants from the West Indies to Liberia, right? So that's your thing, you're talking. You just know that this is the first and last time, as we say in Liberia, we're not giving you any more money. So this is what you're gonna have, no more, right? So so the 16 immigrants had sailed in British schooners who were going to Sierra Leone on their way to Liberia. And excitement was created, right? The Cora was there. The Cora is a fine vessel, he's explaining now, and the arrangement for the reception of the immigrants were made under the eye of Dr. McLean, the Liberian American Colonization Society's agent, right? So the ship, the Cora, is ready, right? The cost of this operation was estimated by persons not connected with the society at 25,000 or 30,000, right? So they had the 10,000 in currency appropriated by the directors. It would cover the whole, right? He wrote that he could doubtless fill a vessel carrying 500 people a month, right? But remember, it's the first and last, right? So this is did so of course there were some people who were saying, yeah, we want to immigrate, but do we really want to go to Africa, right? So he's saying the prejudice of race, of color, the spirit of caste was expected to disappear, right? So once you get there, it's going to go, right? So this is where we were talking about the first half. We said that we're going to talk about how they got there, and then Prof said we're going to talk the next time about what happened when they got there, because what is it? Liberians say, "Can't stay with me and can't visit me." There are two things. There are two different things. So come stay with me and come visit me. It's totally different. So we have these 365 people going to Liberia on the Cora, and now we're going to see next week when Prof comes back. We're going to see what happened when they got there. What happened when they got to Liberia? And I am looking at the list now for Nathan. He wants to know if there was a Nathan. There's more. There's Maury. There's Collier. There's Lane. There's Nurse. John H. Nurse. There's Jordan. There's Gittins, Worrell, Gittins, Armstrong, and Brathwaite. I don't see any Nathan here. Maybe they came from another apart, but there's none of them on this manifest immigrants from Barbados. Yeah. So anyway, so that's it. And they got on a ship and they came, and then we'll see next week what really happened when they got on the ship and what really happened when they got there, right? I'm trying to find the cash received from the what it was for, but I guess it was just for them to go. So if you have questions, please list them. um Richards, okay, let's see the manifest. Okay, I am doing some, and you can find these things. It's not okay. Let's see. We have Pat Moore, we have Skeet, um we have Thorpe again, Eastman, Holder, Jackman Brown, Cadell, Caddell, Haynes, King, Bourne, Broom, Enos, Hunt, Hoot, Blackett, Appleweight, Weeks, Holder, Adamson, Goodrich. What is it? Richards, Francis, Jones, Taylor, Clark, Port, Nightingale, Greaves. Oh, Greaves. So Thomas Greaves was 45. He was a tailor. His wife Adelaide Greaves was 38. Their daughter was 18. Susan Greaves. Their son Joshua Greaves was 16. Morrington Greaves, I guess a son, was 11, and Morgan Greaves, a daughter, was 14. And then the other son, Henry Greaves, was 8. I don't see any Richards here. Maybe they were from Wharton, Moore, Briggs, Collier, Lane, Nurse, Gittins, Worrell, Armstrong, Lane. No, I don't. But that's not to say they might have come from. Um, yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. So I guess Elizabeth said, "Thanks for acknowledging me. I'm the only biological daughter of the late Honorable Professor." Oh, Roland Tombekai Dempster. Oh, Gondolai. Yeah, we read that book. I used to, the Mystic Reformation of Gondolia. Yes, I used to listen to you all, but I got lost from the program. This is great undertakings, and I praise God for all of you who are helping us to connect to our heritage. On my mother's side, we are the only Dobsons in Liberia. My mother's father was James Dobson. We have not been able to connect to the USA Dobsons, the American Dobsons. Hope we are able to. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know Roland Tombekai Dempster, we talked about his book here, The Mystic Reformation of Condolia, and that is almost the only Liberian satire written by Professor Dempster about the corruption that's in Liberia, but he couldn't write about Liberia. So he wrote about another country called Condolia. And the mystic reformation was that it was transformed into a beautiful, corrupt free country, but it took work. So those of you who have not read the mystic reformation of Condolia, I would advise you to read it, get the copy of the book and read it. And we are very honored to have Elizabeth here with us. And maybe if time goes on, we might be able to come back and review again the mystic reformation of Condolia. Yeah. So so as you can see now, it's quite fascinating. And the thing is, I almost got lost because I was just like, oh, I want to read more. Oh, I want to read more. And it was really, really, I mean, I don't even think that it can be one hour. I would say to Prof, maybe we can do three Fridays, because there's so much out there. I mean, when I'm reading the letters, I'm almost seeing the ache that's in the people for a place of their own. And I always say that, sometimes we criticize Liberia. We know that, as we say, in your house, you can have broken windows and you can criticize the broken windows, but you don't go outside and say, oh, my house is dirty, or my house. And I always say that, we are so many, a mixture of so many people, you know but in those rooms that we are, whether the Pele, Grebo, Vi, America, Liberia, from the West Indies, the roof is Liberia. We are all Liberians, and it behoves us to lift our country, because we had a talk one time about Liberia's place, and this country was looked up to by so many people to say this piece of earth is ours, and so we always say lift Liberia up. Whether you from the furthest reaches of the earth and you found a place in Liberia, lifts Liberia up. Nobody is. I think it was. I don't know. I think it was Martin Luther King who said the human soul cannot be perpetually chained. A country cannot just be beaten down. This country has a vast, rich history. And just a mixture of people. Almost, if you look at almost unwanted people. When people cast you out. The enslaved people in the United States were cast out, right? They even the people in the West Indies, like if you read some of the letters, people are saying, okay, yeah, but now they want freedom. What are we going to do with them? You see, and it was extremely insulting to me to read that these slave masters, that Britain told them, we will give you $20,000 or 20,000 pounds if you free your slaves. So it was not for nothing. And this 20,000 pounds has been paid to these people and their descendants until 2015. So these people were getting rich. And in fact, what did they say? They said it lasted until 2015. It was converted into 3.5% of the government annuities. So your friends that you have in Britain were getting paid because their parents had to give up slaves. So it's very fascinating, the history. So like I said, this is called a literary hour. And we've been talking about books. If you go back and see some of our old shows on YouTube, on the Focus on Liberia YouTube channel, you see that we've talked about books. We've talked about, many of you, I don't know if you know that Guyana Power, people say, oh, things fall apart, and I say the first West African novel written in English was Guyana Power, right? Written by a Liberian. Le second, written in 1932, Love in Ebony, right? By I think Charles Cooper, a Liberian novel. We have been writing. We have Elizabeth here, the mystic reformation of Gondola. We don't just have murder in a cassava patch. We've had writers, So we're encouraging you to find Liberian books. We have Fatima Masekwe Fambule. We have Walton Sangawolo. We have Robert Brown. We have Janine Moore. We have a lot of writers. Liberians have not just started to write. Unfortunately, when you're talking to other Africans, they say, "Oh, Liberians can write." We write. Edwin Wilmer Blyden. Edwin Barclay was a poet, and he has a lot of poems and other things. So we encourage you to find these things so that when people say to you, "Oh, Liberian people don't write," you say, "I beg to differ." The first West African novel in English was written by a Liberian, and then you can walk proud and say, "Yes, that's true." So we come here, Prof and I, to just talk. Sometimes Prof and I don't agree always, but he's my professor. Sometimes I defer to him, but we argue. This is our safe place. Every Friday we come here, we joke, we argue about we argue about poetry and literature, and then we talk about history as well, because history intertwines with literature, and we all know that. So if you have time next week and it's cold outside, or you have nothing to do, or even if you have something to do, join us, so we can learn together, because sometimes we have guests on this show, and we've said that if there's a book that you want us to read together and argue about, or not argue, talk about, let us know. We will definitely do it. Prof will be here next week. He's driving, so I know his data is not too good, but we're here every Friday, 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. Sometimes if you're here, if you come and we're not here, just wait until 6:10. We'll be here. It's just that sometimes we have little technical difficulties, but we're here. We want to thank you. For we want to thank you for joining us. Vimende said, "Are there still a lot of pure American Liberians left in Liberia who have two American Liberian parents?" Oh, I don't know. I doubt it. Stephen Keller said, "This is really fascinating. Thanks so much, Prof. I have friends that I feel were named after the ancestors from Barbados, Francis Patmore and Richard Wiles, etc." Yeah. Amina, registered title of the book. Please specify which book. Oh, Guyana Pau. Maybe I can put it GUYNAPAU. Yeah, Guyana Pau. That's the book. Oh, wait. Am I able to? I think it's there. Yeah, and it's one. It's a feminist novel. I say, it's written by a man, and so is Love in Ebony, but it talks about the strength of women. And we have Bamba Sharif, and we have Augustine Sharif. We have Bound to Secrecy, Land of Our Fathers. We have so many. We have Kotu Reeves. We have our own K. Moses Nangbe, who has written a lot of books. I'm sure you know. You know, Oh, Thomas Tue, yeah, Thomas, join us. It's if you want to break from the political vibe, join us. Yeah, he said, I doubt so at this point due to the intermixing that went on in Liberia. Yeah. So Thomas Tue said he will share this program and subscribe. Yeah, the natives are only found in Grand Bassa in Maryland, offspring of two brothers. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah. Daniels, I'm sure there are some, especially over a certain age. Okay. Okay. So I think um, Amos, we will definitely want to hear which app can we get to you on to send her gifts for your program. Love is very much as it relates to my father. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. Jerome Gaiman says that we will do a compilation. So what we say is that focus on Liberia. We come every week, different shows to talk about things that elevate, educate, and promote all things Liberia. So if you want to give, if you want to donate, because this is free, but we pay to be on the air, I think they can post the Cash App. I hope I don't know the Cash App. I should know, but the if they can post the Cash App, that would be good, and we would really like. Oh yeah, donate. to focus on Liberia at FOLTV. Oh, I think okay, FOLTV is the Cash App number, So please, you guys donate, so we can stay on the air. Um, we come every time we do research, and we come is free. We just want to be able to, and what we do is usually after this we're putting together uh, um chapters with all of the references, so you can go yourself and find some of these things. If you have some of them, they are through university access, but these things are papers. These are letters, old letters and things that you can read. This is not John say, this is like in 1861. Yes, the paper. So we will definitely publish at this. But like I said, Elizabeth just said it. We don't come and say, oh, please donate. We put the Cash App number underneath, and we want all of you to donate if you can. $10, $15. You can say it's for the literary hour. You can say that, but it goes to Focus on Liberia. And Focus on Liberia is here to promote all things, educate and promote, and that's what we do here. If next week we will continue this saga, we will delve deeper. Bring your questions, we will answer. We will delve deeper, and we'll look for okay. So the Cash App is on the TV, and we'll definitely look for the look for uh what was I going to say? Sorry, look for the names of other people that maybe were not, I couldn't find them because I was going so fast, but we will try. But we will finish this discussion next week. So please donate to Focus on Liberia. It's not mandatory, but if you would like to donate, we would really love that. And Elizabeth, if you would like to come on to maybe talk about your father, we encourage it. We've had Dr. Tipote on to talk about his book. He just wrote a book. We've had Bamba Sharif and Augustine Sharif on. We've had a lot of people to come and talk about their books. But Tomakai Dempster is a treasure. So if you would like to come and talk about him, and we can ask questions and then talk a little bit about the book, please let us know. You can get us through focusonliberia@gmail.com. So we will say, Jerome Gaiman said we have the Dobsons here in Fort Pierce, Florida. We attend the AME church here. The Dobson family is huge in the South. Maybe there's a connection. Of course, there's a connection. And comment in your Cash App saying you are supporting the literary hour. Okay. Okay, Elizabeth says that she will be pleased for us to exchange our phone numbers. Thanks and amen. So I will send you a message through the messenger tonight, and then you can please come and talk about your father. That would be great. We really we always, Prof and I, we're always saying that, the people, why didn't they write an autobiography so we can read and know more about them? Why didn't Bacchus Matthews, why didn't, or Bitey Moore left something? But there are so many people that we wish we had the autobiography, and to have a first-hand knowledge of Roland Dempster is something that's really, because he was really, I mean, the Mystic Reformation of Condoleezza. That book is, I mean, we fought to get that book, and it's one of my priceless possessions. Yeah. So thank you very much. We've come to the end of another literary hour. Sorry, Prof wasn't here with us. We hope that people will listen to the show. If you have questions, if there's anything that you feel that we didn't clarify, you can send it to focusonliberia@gmail.com. And we will say to you, as we always do when we're closing, whether you came from South Carolina, whether you came as an enslaved person, your ancestors, I mean, whether your ancestors came from West Indies, from the Trinidad, from Barbados, whether they came on a Cora, whether they were recaptured Africans that were dumped on Liberia's shores, whether they were indigenous that were there, we are all Liberians. All of us are Liberians, and we will lift Liberia up. So we say to you, mask up. We say to you, tell your loved ones to take the vaccine, to mask up. And as we always say, lift Liberia up. Lift Liberia up. So we are all Liberians. We will say, good night to you, and we will say that join us again next week. We'll be here. We wouldn't be late. We promise. We'll be here, and Prof will be here, and always remember that we are all Liberian. Thank you very much.
We are Liberian. Liberia is our home.